So, like the recent shooting of the healthcare CEO, do you think that that's like a symptom of a awakening of the American people, or like it's like a one and done thing, and probably won't happen again in the future?
What's one of the greatest lessons that you've learned outside of the classroom?
Whoa. What's like the hardest topic or maybe the hardest class you've had to like teach or talk about or do?
Coming to college, I wanted to be more open-minded, like learn different things. And I'm just interested what you think as a Christian person to like have your morals, have your beliefs, but also be open-minded to like other people, other views, and like how do you recommend that, like how I should navigate that?
What advice have you heard about how people can take the stuff they've heard in this classroom and maybe not like constantly think about these things, but just every once in a while think about some of the stuff we've talked about and applying that to certain career paths or stuff like that?
You mentioned kind of, I think more as in a joking manner in a class that like, oh, in a year I'm going to retire. But it made me think like kind of the technical side of this class. Where do you see it in 5 years?
I don't really have a question, but I just wanted to say something that I learned from the class.
This is your opportunity to ask me any question, anything you want to ask, man. It doesn't matter. It can be really personal. It's fine. I may or may not answer. Dude.
So we've obviously learned a lot from this class. What have you learned over the years? And do you feel like you learn stuff every year from the different students that attend your class?
Lots of things that I learn are the things that I'm reading to prepare for a particular class, and also just different things that people say. Every semester, I learn things. You maybe say things that I haven't thought of. People will sit up here and say things, and then it shifts my thinking a little bit. So that, you won't see that necessarily, but my thinking has shifted tremendously over the years. The conservative side of me has become more liberal, and the liberal side of me has become more conservative. And overall, I'm more confused. And people say really cool things. Dude, just really fast. What's something you've learned this semester about yourself?
What you said last class was definitely something that stuck with me when you talked about balance, right? Every side is gonna like try to pull you to their perspective, right? But there's truth in both, and there is also, not so truth in both as well.
Okay, cool. All right, I like that.
So, like the recent shooting of the healthcare CEO, do you think that that's like a symptom of a awakening of the American people, or like it's like a one and done thing, and probably won't happen again in the future?
I think it's mostly one and done in the sense that he was, it's clear that he's not stable, that person. And by the way, we see other shootings like that, they're just not so prominent. But here's what I want to say. I talked about this yesterday on the live stream in my office hours. The poorest 50% of Americans control 2.6% of the wealth. That's the poorest 50%. So these aren't the poorest of the poor of Americans. So it really is only a matter of time before people they take the pitchforks and they start attacking the castles. It doesn't, maybe not, I could be wrong, but I don't know. Here's the point at which, you can only go so far. Man, you can only push people so far. But in that particular case, he seems to not be very stable. Hey, how about you? What's something that you took away from the class?
I've learned to kind of reach into my curious side more. I've learned to explore new things more, not to be afraid to voice my opinion, because there's probably people that are going to agree with me, or if they do disagree, that's not a problem. Like I've learned to just accept that we all have different opinions, and it's okay to talk about it. It shouldn't be a controversial thing to disagree with each other.
High five to you on that. Yeah, thanks. That's cool.
So I wanted to know, since there's a lot of changes between politics and just students in general, what differences you've seen between our class and previous classes you've had? And if you've seen any big changes in the way that we as students act or how comfortable we are answering certain questions.
Well, the irony is that you all are less prone to argumentation. And I'm not sure why that is, but people have the idea, people who are not inside of universities have the idea that y'all are just sitting around arguing with each other all the time because they watched a protest You got 40,000 Penn State students, and 100 of them are out protesting something. And they think, oh my God, everybody's protesting. It's like, no, you're not. You're a little bit averse to arguing, and you're more open to actually listening to each other's thoughts. And I think that's one thing that I see. This class, if I go back 25, I've had times in this classroom when we almost had fisticuffs, man. I remember one time there was this NFL player. He was an offensive lineman, played for the Kansas City Chiefs for like 10 years. He came back to finish his Penn State degree, and he would sit over here on the side. And one day, people were going at it, and I walked over to him, and I whispered in his ear, "Bro, this gonna get out of hand, man. You're gonna get in the middle of it, all right? If something comes down, I want to see you in the middle of it. Okay, got it?" He's like, he was a big dude. And he's like, "Yeah, I got that." I'm like, all right, I got it. So we had that, that goes back 25 years. I think you're much more aware of other people, and you're much more open. Bro, what's something you got this semester?
I feel like I kind of took this class to maybe see a little bit of drama because I've heard a lot about it before I had signed up for it. And I heard that there might be a couple arguments or a couple issues, and sitting down, it was just all very good, well put together discussions. I feel like everyone got along very well. We all learned a lot about each other and about some of our fellow students, things we might not have pointed out on our own. And I've enjoyed taking this class, even though it wasn't really something I needed to fit into my schedule, credit-wise. Mm-hmm. But I think it was worth taking, and I think it's something that more people should take if they can fit it in.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate that.
What's one of the greatest lessons that you've learned outside of the classroom?
Whoa. To not be afraid of people, to not be afraid of strangers. That human beings are good. 99.9% of the time, human beings are good. Even bad human beings, 99% of the time, will be good. To not be afraid of them. And when you're not afraid, you can have some really, really cool experiences with people, man. I could tell stories that I wish I could just go on and tell stories, man. I got stories. I would say that's my biggest lesson I've learned in life, to not be afraid of people. In a half hour, I'd have another lesson, but that's the one in this moment. How about you? What have you gotten? What are you taking away?
I was actually thinking the same thing. You're only a conversation or two away from a stranger becoming your new best friend.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's really cool. Man, I have been in the craziest of situations, and the people would never put themselves, man, in war zones, all sorts of things. And I have just met the most loving, awesome, interesting people. Yeah, bro.
Speaking of that, I just want to ask you, looking back on your many years of doing this, what's the hardest topic or maybe the hardest class you've had to teach or talk about or do?
The hardest ones are when my wife is in my ear telling me, here are the things you can't say because you're going to get in trouble. And she's right. She's a really good PR person. And then I come into class because I have gotten into trouble, right, by saying something, and then somebody takes the clip and they run with it, and then the quote is on Fox News or wherever else, and then the headline, and I look like a complete lunatic, and and she tries to save me from that. So those are the difficult classes when I pick a tough topic and I walk in with a certain awareness of things I really don't want to say, and then it makes it hard, But I did a class last October, I think it was 13th, right after when the attack on Israel from Hamas. I came in and did a class, and I talked about Israelis and Palestinians in Gaza. I spent just that. I just was raw on it. And Lori said, do not take on this issue. It's too soon. Don't do it. And I just came in, I said, I can't, I have to. and I did it. And that was very well received on people on multiple sides. But I just ignored her. I had to ignore her. But if I listened, those are the hardest things. And you want to have a really smart person telling you, guiding you when you get into these really difficult areas.
A couple of classes ago, or last class, a guy came up and was talking about Christianity and his faith.
Can you go back to what you said to me after class?
Like just the question, the initial question.
Yeah, the question, yeah.
Yeah, so I just asked you basically like, what if we had someone or people of different faith backgrounds, whether it be Muslim or Christian or even Jew, come up and talk about why maybe they may not be completely for, or they may not be in full support of LGBTQ.
Uh-huh.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have any they have any disdain for these people. It just means that they might not support like the root of it.
The root of it, yeah.
Right.
Sometimes people would say lifestyle, but it's not.
That's
it's not,
a better word.
Yeah, but that's not a good word actually, because
And personally, I identify as somebody who's Christian. But like coming to college, I wanted to be more open-minded, like learn different things. And I'm just interested what you think as a Christian person, that like have your morals, have your beliefs, but also be open-minded to like other people, other views, and like how do you recommend that like I should navigate that?
Yeah, the way to navigate it is to hang out with people who are not Christian. And if you're Muslim, hang out with people who are not Muslim. If you're Buddhist, Jewish, whatever it is, hang out with people who are not. And you will, which is a lot easier, obviously, because only 1% of the U.S. population is Muslim if you're here Muslim, whatever it is, right? Hang out with people who are not. If there's something that you really struggle with in your religion, morally, whatever, hang out with people who are, like if you're Christian and you struggle, let's just say homosexuality, right? Go to a Christian church that is really, really gay friendly. Maybe where even the pastor or the minister is gay or lesbian or something, and just go sit in there and see if you feel the same love of Christ. And that's the way you do it, man. That's the way you do it. If you're Muslim, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. So whatever it is. For me, because I can go anywhere to any religious place and feel the spirit. Like I was at when I was in Korea 2 weeks ago for 2 Saturdays, I went to a Buddhist monastery for the death ceremony for a friend of mine. And man, I was in this room that it was, chanting the whole thing. I was in it, man. I was in it. And I thought, wow, these Buddhists really have it going on. Right? But then I was at a Christian church recently and things were popping. I'm like, man, these Christians really have it going on. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, whatever.
I was just thinking about how there's probably people from all different majors and probably like hundreds of future career paths in this room. What do you recommend, or like what advice have you heard about how people can take the stuff they've heard in this classroom and maybe not like constantly think about these things, but just every once in a while think about some of the stuff we've talked about in applying that to certain career paths or stuff like that?
Yeah, well, every career path involves other people, and every career path involves meeting strangers, and every career path involves learning something about yourself through the eyes and the interactions with the strangers. So that's the one thing that you can take from this class throughout life, is just engage strangers with an openness and a curiosity in the way that you imagine that I do, right? And if you can do that, that's all you need. And that's one of the reasons I teach like this. I can't give you information, like you'll forget that. But you won't forget the fact that all these people came up here and talked, and they really had something to say, which means everyone you meet on the street, anywhere, they have something to say. Yeah, and that's cool.
You mentioned kind of, I think more as in a joking manner in a class that like, oh, in a year I'm going to retire. But it made me think like, kind of the technical side of this class, where do you see it in 5 years? Is there someone that you think personally would be great to succeed you in this? Or, when you retire, obviously World in Conversation isn't going to go away, but do you think when you retire this class will go, or will it be passed on to someone?
Well, it may not continue in the way that it does, because a lot of people aren't convinced that this is the way to do a class like this, right? And you have to have a little bit of a theatrical personality, but you have to be convinced that just giving people information is not the way to educate them, right? Since you all have phones. So y'all, I didn't give you anything this semester. You want data? You want information? Here, just look it up on your phone, man. So that's the That's the biggest obstacle, is that someone would have to come in with that mentality. And those are hard to find, but they're out there. So I don't know. I don't know what will happen. I don't know when I will finish. Yeah. I'm 64, man. You know what I mean? I feel like my spirit, I feel like I'm about 24. But yeah. But there are a lot of golf courses to play, you know what I mean? And so, like, I don't know. How about you? What have you gotten?
Definitely the new set of skills. Just being able to, I've always had an easy time talking to people, but kind of getting more into like kind of asking the questions that really matter to really probe something.
Cool. I like that.
I just have a curiosity. I've noticed like every class you're holding beads, and I was just wondering like the significance or why.
Well, because I mostly have Christian, Buddhist, and Muslim prayer beads, right? They just keep me grounded. Yeah, they keep me centered on God, right? So it's ironic that I identify as an atheist, but I'm praying all the time to God, right? The mother, by the way, God the mother. So that's me. And so I'm to really stay centered. Yeah. But these happen to be prayer beads that Bassem got for me in Cairo. And they're meaningful to me.
I wanted to ask, I've been curious about how your kind of ongoing connection to like Korea and like Korean culture has formed.
So one day in class in like 2017, when BTS was they broke a Taylor Swift download record in 24 hours. And I heard it on the BBC that morning, and I said, God, this is it. I listen to K-pop. I'm very much an ethnomusicologist, right? I listen to music from all over the world, different backgrounds, all day long. I'm listening because I have tinnitus, right? And so I said, this is the K-pop group that's going to take over the world. This is the bands. These groups going to take over the world, man. This is it. So, and I knew that. I came in, and I said, hey, and I put their photo up on the front screen, and I said, anyone know who these guys are? And about 7 hands went up in the air. And I said, listen, by the time you graduate, you're going to know who they are. Your parents and your grandparents, they're going to know who these guys are. This is the biggest, they're the biggest pop group in the world, bigger than the Beatles ever were. And you may be saying, like, well, I didn't really follow them. Yeah, but the other side of the world, there's 8 billion people in the world. They're the biggest band, their biggest group in the world. They grew into that. And that video took off in Korea because, it was just when they started to take off. So somebody grabbed it and translated, and then people in Korea started translating other videos of mine. Yeah, so.
As someone who advocates for dialogue and conversation within colleges and the world, do you believe America is heading in a direction that's like more pro-dialogue or anti-dialogue?
I think we're going toward more conversation and dialogue. And I think the fact that Trump won again, let me give you the good, for those who don't like Trump, let me give you the good side of that he won. It's empowering his base. They're going to feel like they can talk more, and they're going to not feel like they have to be so extreme. You know how people are, right? They're just extreme. They say all this extreme stuff because they got to get attention. And they're going to feel more and more people in the Trump base are going to feel like they don't have to do that. So they now have more of a platform. So they're going to say now more thoughtful things about what they actually think, which they already say if you listen to them, but sometimes they got to do the extreme thing. And I think that's going to move us more toward dialogue, but it's going to depend on whether the left actually is willing to respond with mutual conversation and stuff. And I'm not so sure. Well, I'm optimistic. So yeah, that's what I think.
So we've talked about pretty much every type of issue in this class, but do you think there are any issues that are too sensitive or people are unwilling to talk about?
No, not a single one. And the only issue is if you think like, well, yeah, but you didn't talk about, let's take Israel-Palestine. Last year, I did 4 classes in Israel, Palestine. Dude, no one was talking in a class like this. Are you kidding me? That issue? We did 4 classes where students were talking. It was awesome. It was really good. We just didn't do it this semester. I don't know why. We're just doing other things. So every semester, every year is different. We just keep bouncing around to new ideas. So if anyone has a cool idea for a class, let me know, because I'll do it next semester, maybe. Yeah. So no, I don't think there are any issues that are too sensitive. Yeah. At last class, I mentioned that I kept 2 books from my office to not get rid of. One was Peace Pilgrim, and the other one was, so the question is, what was the other one? It was 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Yeah, I just couldn't throw that away. I gave it to G. So, yeah.
I don't really have a question, but I just wanted to say something that I learned from the class. I think overall, just the way I talk to people and the way, like, for example, I get in an Uber or I'm on a flight, like, that's changed since I've done this class. I've been there once, but I think just, if you think about it, this every day, Tuesday and Thursday, we're just watching you break down people when you're meeting them for the first time and you're asking them deep questions that they probably wouldn't be willing to answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just watching you do that and then also doing it, changes the way you talk to people. So
cool.
Yeah.
See, man, that's that. Okay. High five to all of you on that. High five to myself. Yeah, that's cool. That's it. That's all you can get, man.
I know there could be a lot that you would change in this world, but if there was one thing that you could change at all, what would it be?
I wish I could take every human being who I teach, everyone who ever becomes a student of mine, I wish I could take them on one of my trips that I go on. Because you'd just be forever radically altered, man. To see the people I see and meet people who I can introduce to, just meeting, this is cool. Just that. See how to navigate a different world, a foreign world and stuff.
So you definitely recommend us all to travel and explore the world.
Yeah, right? But you got to travel you have to travel in a really, really open way. Yeah. So going to student hostels and doing stuff like that, where you're just meeting people on the ground, man, on the low budget trip kind of stuff. Don't be afraid. Don't read the headlines where it's like, college student abducted in Brazil and, chopped up with a chainsaw and fed to ants, oh my God, oh, Brazil. Don't do that. It's the world's a very safe place. I've even been in war zones. The world's pretty safe, even in war zones. Usually the war is just happening in one little spot. It's not everywhere. So I would say that, yeah.
Okay. One more thing. Thank you for being such a great professor.
Dude, I'm not going to take that on, but, Yeah. I feel that I'm really not comfortable with that. But whatever. You're on.